Hey everybody, wanted to do a video about my process preparing for the day of the week. I've been recently tweeting out several things about what I'm looking at when the market closes and kind of how to do that analysis, but my goal is how to prepare, and I want to come up with a process around that. And I wanted to share it because I want to go through the things that I'm looking for and the things that go into that process. One of the things I've tweeted about a lot lately is just keeping everything simple, and coming up with a process for me also means trying to keep that simple. I read a lot, and there's just a huge deluge of information available to you. And whether you're following my Twitter or another one, there's a lot of information out there. And it's really hard to cut some of that out sometimes. And part of my approach here is just to, focus or come up with a few things to look at every single time that I'm preparing for a trading day. One of the interesting things, and I think I said something about this in the past week, was I got a text message from a friend the other day who said, "Wow, this market's so crazy. It's going down and everything looks like it's falling apart after we hit that all-time high." And the fact is that that's a really biased emotional statement. And so, really the value proposition of what I'm doing today is just to simplify that, not let those emotions come into your thinking. And as I say all the time, is I'm not tracking multiple indicators, and I'm not trying to guess what's happening next. Rather, I'm just looking at what's happening right now. And so coming into the week, always it's always useful to be very prepared and organized. So my process, I think of it like a camera, like you're zoomed out, you're looking at the really wide range of information, and then you start to gradually zoom in bit by bit. And so that's how I visualize it. It does a few things. It keeps me level-headed. It gives me a realistic basis for my analysis, and I just do it based on what I'm seeing. And this is really at the crux of what Jim Dalton always talks about. But trading with market-generated information. I'm not trading on information that's been generated in my emotions. And there's so many things that can be influencing your emotional biases coming into it, into a trading day or week. Whether it's the virus, the economy, the upcoming election, the wildfires out in the western United States. There's protests happening in different countries around the world, like in Colombia and Belarus, and you can really pick your poison and come up with your biases based on all that. But obviously, none of that's what is happening in the market right now. And if you're trading in the market, then you need to just stick with what the market's giving you. So with that, I'm going to go through that process I mentioned, which is zooming in bit by bit. I'm going to start here with the candles, and what you're looking at here is just a weekly view. You see that here I think this is this is a weekly, each of these candles represents a week, but here was the low point, and this was in mid to late March. And you can see that we're on this uptrend ever since. It's just a fact. That's where we are. You can also see, and I should mention now, but I'm working on a fairly old PC, and so sometimes my cursor, you can see this highlight moving up slowly. My cursor is really far behind, which I don't really know what to do about, but that's what that is. Anyways, you can see that since March, the market, and I'm looking here, my cursor's still not caught up to where I am, but I'm looking here in mid to late April, and you can see that after a recovery since mid to late March, that we dipped back down a little. We went back up into mid to late June, and then again, same thing. We pulled back down a little, and then we started the next leg up, and we're now pulling back down a little. Is this the start of a downtrend? I'm not sure. I'm just going off what I'm looking at here, but you can see that on the weekly, we are one time framing down. So last week was lower than the previous week. I'm going to move over to the daily candle now. And what you've got here is the same thing. I'm going to zoom out and go back all the way back to March too. So this is every day since March. Similar situation where we go up, we pull back a little, we go up. In this case, we just balanced around right here. So we stayed in this tight frame, then we moved up again to here, came back down, and we've been on an uptrend, but we've moved back down. So we are one time framing down still on a daily perspective as well. So we're coming down, but none of this is something that you should overreact. So we did hit an all-time high and come back, but that's just not. That's just it's what we've seen since March, and so it's just a continuation of the same pattern. But as you can see, we are still in a strong bull trend up. So with that, I now have a very clear picture without any biases of what's happening. So with that, I'm going to come over to the TPO profiles now, and I'm just going to quickly go through what I'm looking at using what's sitting here on the screen in front of me. But this is our Friday TPO. By the way, if you're not familiar with what the TPO profile is, I have a video on that in my YouTube channel, so check that out. But you can see that right here, I've talked a lot about excess recently. You can see that the auction finished to the upside on Friday. We also, based on what I just told you and showed you in the on the candlesticks, we know that we are one time framing down on the daily and weekly, and so the information we've got now says that the auction to the upside is finished. And the other information is that this is a poor low, and we typically would say that this means the auction to the downside has not finished. So and I'm also going to go back and look at what happened. So this is the overnight session right here. And then I'm also going to look at these single prints, and this is what I posted about last week several times on Friday, I believe. But this finished auction here was not able to get over these single prints here. And what that tells me is that when we had on Thursday, if you remember, we had this huge move down on Thursday. And as it went down, it left single prints in this area here. It left single prints here as well. This is the arrow I drew earlier. So those single prints mean that when we came down here, and I can pull this out a bit, that when this move happened down on Thursday, it left single prints here and price moved down really fast, in particular here in this point. Let me erase that. So when it did that, it means that sellers were really high conviction traders. They were in control there, and they moved price down quickly. And so for the inability for buyers to get price back up above those single prints from Thursday means that these prices are being accepted down here now, because on Friday, price tried to get up over this area and then began distributing here. And so what that means is that there was really acceptance in this move down on Thursday. And so it really confirms that the one time framing down is not an anomaly, but rather sellers were in control in this scenario on Thursday into Friday. And so what I've done is I've come into coming into the trading week ahead here, I've just come up with this information here on the fly, showing you that what the facts are. So sellers are in control. Sellers are currently moving the market down. Buyers have not been able to get up over this hump that I pointed out at the single prints. So one of the things you'll notice is that I'm not saying that we're in a bear market. I'm not overreacting. Sorry about this. I get a little click happy sometimes. I'm not saying that we're, sky's falling and the market's in the bear market and everything's falling apart and you should sell everything. It can feel like that sometimes if you're in a position or if your stocks have erased a lot of gains. But, one, I'm not saying that we're doing any of that, because I'm using the information at hand. That's the kind of emotion that, my friend was showing when he texted me the other day. The other thing is that it's simply not true that everything's falling apart, but rather, and going back to this weekly candle, we are one time framing down, but we've pulled down before in the past. And so, we've pulled down here, we pulled down there. We're doing it again. The other night I actually measured, I think I did it on the weekly, but I measured the percentage change in the high to low on these pullbacks, and we're at something like 8.5% off the all-time high right now. And this move here back in June was actually over 9%, and then this one was about, I can't remember, like 7%. So this is not out of the ordinary. This is what markets do. This is what markets need to do to shake some of these weak hands as they move up. And so, just keep that in keep that perspective that the overall trend is still up. This is a pullback. Now, if we were to continue moving down, then that would be a different story. We're not there yet, though, and I'm not going to try to guess if we go there this week. So, and the final thing I wanted to say too is just that, when I'm providing this information, this is just the education that I'm taking in right now and the things that I'm studying, and these are my notes. But I think the best way to do this for everybody is to think about your own tolerance and come up with your own strategy using this information. So really what I've just showed you is that I have the 3-step process of looking at that monthly trend, looking at the daily trend, looking at the weekly trend, looking at the daily trend, and then looking at the TPO of the last few days just to know where some of those excesses are. The fact that we're one time framing down on the daily and weekly means the market is currently trending down. It means that it's out of balance. And so that's that's how to interpret that. But you don't need to get a whole lot more complicated than that right now. If you're doing day trading, though, I do want to come back over and quickly talk about this. This is again just the information that we have at hand. So it was rejected there. So tomorrow I'm looking at this, but I'm not, I'm watching it here, but I'm not necessarily saying that because we're in a downtrend, it can't break through and go in an uptrend. It could. It just hasn't done it yet. And so we'll just watch to see if it does it tomorrow. One of the things that I'll eventually get into is some of the trading strategy and using volume to determine that, hey, price has come up here to the 3360 area, so I'm going to go short. But if you do that, now, and I think one of the benefits of putting a lot of time in is that if you take that trade and you do go short, if price comes up here and you think that the market's going to go down, you may be jumping ahead, you may be front running that trade. But if your risk is low, that's probably something that you would learn a valuable lesson from. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad trade. So a lot of it is using the information that I'm providing, using the information that we have at hand, and then starting to put the time in yourself and coming up with a strategy for your trading. For me, as I learned this, it's not worth it to me to be trading multiple ES contracts and risking thousands of dollars. That's just not, for me, a prudent strategy right now. So I've been trading the MES, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I often try to provide some color around those trades if I do show them and why I took them. But they're by no means foolproof. And so I think coming up with your own concept and tolerance of risk and experimenting over time is going to eventually get you to where you want to be. But it is a process, and so just coming into the week or coming into a day with this information is certainly, I think, going to help you get there sooner. So thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, but also, take advantage of the videos I've put out there because they explain a lot of these concepts, or even the chart that is on my screen now in greater detail. But yeah, that's it. And thank you.